Okay, if I could ask everyone to turn on their video cameras.
This is Marla Purdy. I'm having issues turning on my video camera.
That's fine. You can just keep it on the audio.
Okay.
Attorney, is it Valena for Team Diana?
Yes.
Is your whole team here?
It appears so.
Okay. And if I could ask Ms. Stoll for Team Streisand? Can you take yourself off mute and
Good morning, Your Honor.
good morning. Can you let me know, does it look like your whole team is here?
Yes. Yes, our whole team is here. Thank you.
Well, perfect. Then it seems like everybody is ready to start this trial. Is that correct? Okay, great. And I have to read through a couple of these reminders for everyone. The Colorado Bar Association may be taking photographs, or as you saw, they are streaming this live, and they also may be recording it. And it's for the purposes of team participation in the state tournament and things like that, for permission to use these photos. Also, I'm going to remind everybody that there's no recesses allowed. However, if we have some technical difficulties, I'll just ask the timekeepers to stop time while we deal with those technical difficulties. Can I have each of the scoring panelists put their videos back on? Scoring panelists, do you see any reason you may be biased judging either of the team? Do you recognize any of the students or schools? If not, just give me a thumbs down. Perfect. I'm going to remind everybody that we are going to, that any disputes that arise out of this competition must be reported per the rules of the competition, and there will be compliance with all of the time requirements. I'm going to ask each side to introduce their participating team members. First, the attorneys for Team Diana. If you could please say your name and what roles you'll be doing.
I can begin. Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Ashley Dunn, and I will be an attorney for Team 1. I will be direct examining Dakota Weirs and cross-examining Skylar Weirs, and I will also be doing our closing.
Hi, I am Sharon Sachs. I am also a plaintiff attorney. I will be doing the opening, the direct of Dr. Casey Rogers, and the cross of Dr. Devin William.
My name is Lisa Valena. I will be doing the direct examination of Carson Durst and the cross-examination of Blake Downcourt.
Great, thank you. Can I have the witnesses for Team Diana please introduce themselves?
Hi, I can start. My name is Jada Friedman, and I will be playing Dr. Casey Rogers.
My name is Sophia Suisa, and I'll be playing Dakota Weirs.
My name is Addison Patrick, and I'll be playing Carson Durst.
Thank you. Can I now ask the defense side to introduce their attorneys and the roles that they will be taking?
Good morning, Your Honor. I'm Connor Doroff. I will be performing the direct examination of Blake Downcourt, as well as the cross of Dakota Weirs and the closing statement.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Emily Stoll. I'm an attorney for Team Streisand. I'll be conducting the cross-examination of Dr. Casey Rogers, and I will be doing the direct examination of Dr. Devin Williams, and I will also be doing opening statement.
Good morning, Your Honor. I will be doing, my name is Jacob Hodgson. I am on Team Streisand, and I will be doing the direct examination of Skylar Weirs and the cross-examination of Carson Durst.
And if I could have the witnesses for the defense team Streisand.
Good morning, Your Honor. I am Marissa Gray, and I will be playing Blake Doncourt.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Nathan Gray, and I will be assuming the role of Devin Williams.
Sorry, Skylar, I think we're having a hard time hearing, Piper, sorry, I think I have a hard time hearing you. Piper, since I saw that you were next to Devin, could you possibly step over and use his computer temporarily?
I'm Piper Salmon, and I'll be assuming the role of Skylar Weirs.
Great, thank you all. Now, if I could have all of the team members, both for Team Diane and Streisand, please raise your right hands. Team members, do you promise that the presentation you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition? If so, please say, I will.
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 Great, thank you. Scoring panelists, can I have you raise your right hand? Please, do you promise to adjudicate the mock trial competition as fairly and objectively as possible in accordance with the facts, procedures, and rules of the mock trial competition?
I will. Yes, I will.
Thank you. And I apologize, I asked for the team members. I should have just asked for the attorneys. If I could just ask the witnesses to raise their right hands. Witnesses, do you promise that the testimony you are about to give faithfully and truthfully will conform to your witness statements, that you will not add material facts or opinions which are not contained in the case problem, and that you will follow the rules and procedures of the mock trial competition?
I will.
I will.
Great. Thank you all.
Good.
Are there any preliminary matters from either side?
Yes, Your Honor, just one.
Ms. Dunn.
The plaintiff requests that for both counsels, unless you are a timekeeper, an attorney examining a witness, or a witness being examined, that you keep your camera off for the sake of our Wi-Fi.
That is fine, yes. If, so for this mock trial, please turn off your camera and make sure you're on mute. And the only ones that will be up will be the attorneys for that witness and the witness.
Your Honor, I also have a preliminary matter.
Mr. Hodgson.
Yes. Your Honor, the defendant requests that all that all parties agree that all attorneys, witnesses, and the judge have access to all exhibits that can refer to them directly without having to screen share them.
That's fine. For purposes, especially for Wi-Fi and to make this easier, we will all refer to the exhibits that we were provided through the mock trial competition. Any other preliminary matters?
No, Your Honor.
And the attorney for Team Diana was ready to start with their opening.
Yes, Your Honor.
Right. You may begin.
Thank you. So, Your Honor and members of the jury, my name is Shannon Sachs, and I am representing Dakota Weirs in this case. And this case in question is an unfortunate tale of a young child taking on a job that would eventually end up giving her cancer. Dakota Weirs has been a highly active member of the community. She's always been the first to join her school clubs and loved helping the homeless shelters in her area. Dakota dedicated her life to her music. And when she was only 14 years old, Dakota decided to work for Haven Landscaping, where she used fertilizer products from a company called Lush Fertilizers. She worked for them for a long time, but unfortunately, after 4 years of employment, she started to notice a drop in her health. Her symptoms worsened over time until she could no longer do many of the physical tasks without being in pain. And now, during this time that Dakota was supposed to be having fun with her friends and hearing back from colleges, she instead received a very different kind of news. She was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, an environmental cancer. And just like that, her life was flipped on its head. Dakota suffered immensely. Her job, her passion, her hopes for college were all but thrown in the trash. She lost everything, and she went through so much pain, both mentally and physically, at only 18 years old. However, in the following months, some new information came to light. Some leaked documents showed that Drufo, a harmful chemical, was found in Lush fertilizer products. Not only does this product have the capability to cause non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, but Lush Fertilizer already had prior knowledge of this fact and decided to keep it from the public. Lush Fertilizers created a product that causes cancer, and they hid it, and they buried it. Members of the jury, today we will hear the defense give their side of the story, and they'll tell you that Drufo is not as harmful as it may seem. However, this discounts the research done by professionals. Real and undeniable science, as you will hear about today, has proven that Drufo is a detrimental chemical, and no one should handle it without extensive protection. Later, the defense will claim that they wanted their users to be safe, and that they believed they took all the precautions to make that happen. However, recovered documentation saying that they incorporated Drufo in their products, despite knowing about its effects, would say otherwise. On top of that, there's also evidence, as you will hear about later today, that Lush Fertilizers actually decided not to take the measures necessary to reduce the harmful effects of Drufo because of how costly it would be. It seems to them that the risk of cancer is worth saving a few dollars. And above all, Your Honor and members of the jury, the defense will tell you that they care for Dakota, that they are sorry for her condition. However, sorry doesn't cure Dakota's cancer. Sorry doesn't discount many experts' research on the effects of the cancer-causing agent Drufo, and sorry doesn't begin to explain why Lush Fertilizers knowingly included Drufo in their products. To fully flesh out the facts of this case, the plaintiff will call upon 3 witnesses: Dakota Weirs, Carson Durst, and Dr. Casey Rogers. Dakota will shed light on her experience throughout her time working with Lush Fertilizer products, as well as what happened as she found out about her illness. Carson Durst, the lead product developer for Tara's research and development team, will give us an inside view of what her time was like working with Lush Fertilizers. This testimony will prove that Lush Fertilizers do not have the care and consideration for their users as they promise. And Dr. Casey Rogers will then provide an expert's description on the properties of Drufo, which will show the dangers of the chemical and solidify our understanding of the severity that this case carries. Now, On one side of this case, we say a large company, one that is too proud to admit that they were extremely remiss with the safety of their products. The company that chose profit over the well-being of their users. And on the other side, there is a girl who lost everything at their hands. And all she wants is to see that this company, Lush Fertilizers, is brought to justice. Your Honor, members of the jury, in an attempt to bring Dakota some solace, you will see by preponderance of the evidence that Lush Fertilizers has been negligent with their safety precautions and will rule in favor of the plaintiff. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Stoll for the opening for the defense.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Emmy Stoll. My colleagues and I come to represent the defendant, Lush Fertilizer, who has been wrongly accused of failing to warn customers of the dangers of Drufo. This case has been heavily influenced by the plaintiff, Mrs. Weirs. But as one would expect, in a time of uncertainty, Mrs. Weirs is looking hard for any explanations to make sense of her suffering. The competitors are taking advantage and manipulating Mrs. Weirs. They're taking a hold of her fear. The competitors are taking no notice of the facts of the case. They're taking complete advantage of her suffering just to gain an economic advantage, which is quite common. Mrs. Weirs' disease is real, but the allegations against Lush are not. Lush Fertilizer spent an enormous amount of time testing, creating, and researching fertilizer that limits the amount of dangerous chemicals that the people and environment are exposed to. And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the plaintiff is going to try to persuade you that Lush Fertilizer was extremely careless when releasing its products in order to stay competitive in industry. But to do this, the plaintiff must prove that Mrs. Weirs was not irresponsible of her actions. And this is not true. As you will hear from Mrs. Weirs herself, she failed to wear protective gear while working with any products because of petty reasons, such as the weather. The plaintiff must show that Drufo, or that causes non-Hodgkin lymphoma, but specifically causes Mrs. Weirs' cancer. The plaintiff must clearly show that Lush did not take the proper precautions to prevent these dangers. Nevertheless, evidence will show that this is not true. Lush Fertilizer went through enormous amounts of testing during its development, each time proving its safety. Mrs. Weirs was a landscaper technician, so she was exposed to countless other chemicals and products while working. Any one of these harsh chemicals could have resulted in her condition. It is too broad of an assumption to say that Drufo specifically caused Mrs. Weirs' cancer. To reassure you that there has been no negligence on Lush's part, we will call 3 witnesses to the stand. To start, you will hear from Blake Doncourt. Blake is the Chief Executive Officer at Lush Fertilizer. Blake's extensive research and testing done before putting it on the market proves that Drufo is not a risk for people coming into contact with fertilizers. Thorough testing has shown time and time again that the use of Drufo is not dangerous. Next, we will hear from Skylar Weirs. Skylar Weirs is Dakota's twin sister. Skylar is an investigative journalist who wrote several prominent articles on the conflict between individual health and corporate policies. Before Dakota Weirs was even diagnosed, Skylar is well educated, writing many articles on the modern world of agritech. And finally, you will hear the testimony of Dr. Devin Williams. Devin Williams works for Lush Fertilizer as the head of the toxicology and research department. His responsibility being to determine if products are harmful to people and the environment. Devin Williams will explain that Drufo is far better than people in our planet compared to old fertilizers that were used in the past. And later on, you will hear that there was a ban on Drufo in the EU. The plaintiff will take advantage of this, trying to imply that Drufo is dangerous. However, Dr. Williams will show that the ban on Drufo is not between any correlation to cancer at all. It was banned because no new fertilizer formulas were allowed that contributed to the nitrogen runoff. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please do not let the plaintiff manipulate your decisions with the lies they speak to you, like they did with Mrs. Weirs. Do not let their emotions take over the scientific facts that have proven time and time after time the safety of Drufo. Although Mrs. Weir's disease is quite unfortunate, the plaintiff cannot prove that the disease was caused by Drufo. At the conclusion of this trial, we will ask that you put an end to this chaotic mess that business competition has pulled many people into. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Stoll. I'm going to give the scorekeepers a moment. I believe Ms. Dunn, you may call your first witness for the plaintiff's Team Diana.
Yes, the plaintiff would like to call Dakota Weirs to the stand. Good morning. Good morning, Ms. Weirs.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming and speaking today. Now, will you please tell the jury a little bit about yourself?
Well, I was a student. I actually was a very honored student. I was in National Honor Society. I mean, I was the president of the student council. I was quite active in the community.
And do you have any hobbies, Ms. Weirs?
I do. Some of my hobbies was actually to play the piano.
And where did this interest begin, playing the piano?
Well, it started with my grandfather. He was a quite gifted pianist. And I mean, I just took a liking after he passed away.
And did you ever pursue playing the piano at all?
I did. I became a quite excellent pianist. I made thousands of people come and watch me from around the world.
And were you ever thinking about college, Ms. Weirs?
I was. I actually did get accepted to Juilliard. Only the top 7% get accepted. It was quite a great honor for me.
Now, I want to talk about your employment history a little bit. Do you work, Ms. Weirs?
Not currently, but I did work at New Haven Landscaping.
And why did you decide to work at New Haven Landscaping?
Well, I mean, who wouldn't work at New Haven Landscaping? It takes all the things that love nature. I mean, the fresh air, the mountains, the trees.
And could you talk to me about what type of work you typically do at landscaping?
I joined when I was 14, but so I was too young to work on the machinery. So I used mostly the fertilizer for landscaping.
And when you're working with this fertilizer, what clothing did you usually wear?
I wore short sleeve shirts and shorts.
And were you ever advised to do otherwise?
I was never.
Now, I want to touch back on your piano playing for a moment. Are you still planning on attending Juilliard with your scholarship?
Actually, I really can't. I was recently, I had to defer it. I'm not allowed to play. I can't. I have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I just can't play the piano anymore.
Could you tell me what that is, that diagnosis?
I can. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, I mean, would cause me to swell, and I got diagnosed not too long ago, which made me defer the scholarship. And it's just been horrible for my entire life.
And what were your symptoms like with this diagnosis?
They were horrible. I mean, imagine like the worst thing that happened to me. I couldn't sit for long. Even trying to play the piano with my hands caused terrible pain. I would get fatigue. I would swell to sizes that even though I was eating, and I would get really thin. It's just horrible.
And was it easy coming to this diagnosis?
It wasn't. I had to go to many doctors. The medical bills started racking up even before I got diagnosed.
Now, what did they say about your recovery from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
They said I had a very little chance of recovering. I may never get to be part of the greatest in the world to go to Juilliard.
And how did that affect you, losing that scholarship?
It was horrible. I mean, who wouldn't be affected by it? I did the greatest thing in the world, and I just lost it all.
Now, I want to back up for just a moment, if that's okay, and talk about when you made this diagnosis. Can you tell me what occurred when you made the connection between your diagnosis and Lush Fertilizer?
Well, because I sit home all day now, I was watching the TV, and then I saw something about Drufo on the TV and how it could cause cancer.
And after you saw this, what did you proceed to do?
I called my boss at New Haven Landscaping and I asked him if there was a connection. And I found out that there was when I used Lush fertilizer.
And did you look into these Lush fertilizer products that you use specifically?
I did.
Dakota, could you please refer to what has been marked as Exhibit 1? Your Honor, I would like to introduce Exhibit 1 for the record. Opposing counsel has a copy of Exhibit 1 already. Now, Ms. Weirs, do you recognize this?
I do.
What is it?
It is the label for Lush fertilizer.
And how do you know?
Because it says Lush fertilizer on it and also has ingredients list.
And is it a fair and accurate representation of the Lush fertilizer label that you used while working at Haven Landscaping?
It is.
Your Honor, I would like to move Exhibit 1 into evidence.
Any opposition, Mr. Dorff?
No, Your Honor.
So moved. That is now Exhibit 1.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Weirs, when you took a look at this Lush fertilizer label, what did you notice about it?
It has Brufo on it.
And did you do any additional research on these Lush products?
I did.
And what did you find?
I found that there is a French label.
Ms. Weirs, could you please refer to what has been marked as Exhibit 2? Your Honor, I would like to introduce Exhibit 2 for the record. Opposing counsel has a copy of Exhibit 2 already. Now, Ms. Weirs, do you recognize this?
I do.
And what is it?
It is the French label.
And is it a fair and accurate representation of the French Lush label that you discovered?
It is.
Your Honor, I would like to move Exhibit 2 into evidence.
Attorney Dorff, any opposition?
Yes, Your Honor. I object to relevancy.
Ms. Dunn, can you explain the relevancy of the French document for us?
Yes, Your Honor. May I ask the witness a couple questions to establish the relevancy?
You're going to establish the relevancy with a few more follow-ups?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, I'll give you 2 questions and then I'll ask you to state your relevancy.
Now, Ms. Weirs, what was significant about this French label that you found?
There is no Drufo on it.
And did you do any additional research as to why that is?
I did. I found the UN does not allow Drufo.
Your Honor, I'm establishing this exhibit as evidence that Drufo is a product that's not acceptable outside of the US.
That appears relevant. I'm going to overrule the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now,
and I will allow Exhibit 2 is what you want moved into evidence?
Yes, Your Honor.
So moved.
Now, Ms. Weirs, I want to talk about your twin Skylar for a moment. Could you talk to me about your relationship with her?
Well, my relationship was quite good with my twin Skylar. I mean, we're twins, so you would think you would have a good relationship. But lately, it's been rocky. I mean, she's too in deep in her journalism.
And how has she reacted to your diagnosis?
Horrible. She thinks that I'm trying to take away from money or something.
And how has this affected your relationship with her?
We no longer talk. We no longer communicate. She hates me.
And because you and Skylar are twins, was there ever concern that she would develop the same diagnosis?
No, Skylar is non-Hodgkin's lymphoma was said that it was environmental earlier. So Skylar is allergic to the outside. That's why it was never concerned.
Thank you, Dakota. That will be all, Your Honor.
Attorney Dorff, do you have cross?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may begin.
Good morning, Ms. Weirs. My name is Connor Dorff, and I will be directing your cross-examination today. I'd like to start off by discussing a little about your history in landscaping. Did you handle and distribute Lush fertilizer specifically at Haven Landscaping?
Yes, I did.
Yes or no, Ms. Weirs? When using Lush fertilizer, did your employer give any instructions on proper safety measures?
They did not.
Ms. Weirs, did your employer tell you to wear clothing that covered all parts of the body?
They did not, but how was I supposed to expect that I was going to get cancer? I was 14 when I joined this thing. This label doesn't even have anything about cancer.
Ms. Weirs, I'm going to ask that you kind of stick to the question, okay?
Sorry, give me a second, Your Honor. I'm having tech problems.
Sure.
Your Honor, can we pause time for just a second while I briefly try to solve this?
Certainly. Can you, the timekeeper can please hold time?
Nothing is. Okay, sorry. We can resume now.
Timekeeper, can you start time again? Thank you.
Ms. Weirs, if I could please refer you to your witness statement. In lines 62 to 64, could I have you please read those, starting from my boss?
The beginning of line 62.
No, starting from my boss, please.
My boss always told me to cover my face when I was working with chemicals, but sometimes it was just too hot and I felt felt so good.
Actually, could I have you continue to read all the way to line 66? I apologize.
We were also technically supposed to wear long sleeves, pants, and gloves when we were working with fertilizer, but it was summer and it was way too hot to do that.
So, Ms. Weirs, your employer did give you recommendations on proper safety measures, correct?
Or he gave me recommendations to wear a mask.
As well as clothing that covered parts of the body?
Not.
Say that again.
He did not give me recommendations to wear clothing.
Ms. Weirs, as your witness statement states, we were also technically supposed to wear long sleeves, pants, and gloves when we use fertilizer.
It never says my boss said I should wear it.
Okay, I'd like to move on. I'd like to discuss the other products used during your time at Haven. Was Lush fertilizer the only product that you handled?
Yes, it was.
Ms. Weirs, again, I'd like to direct you to your witness statement. You state that you used numerous other products at your time at Lush Fertilizer, but you were made aware of those labels, correct?
Yes.
And with these other products, did you use protective equipment when handling them?
Can you repeat the question?
With these other products, did you use protective equipment when handling them?
I only used Lush fertilizer.
Give me a sec. Your Honor, I'm having trouble with the case and it's loading. Your Honor, I apologize for this. Ms. Weirs, sorry. Okay. I'd like to direct you to your witness statement again, lines 89 through 90. You say that other fertilizers and chemicals Haven used often had some sort of warning in packaging. This implies that you did in fact use other fertilizers other than Lush fertilizers specifically while your time at Haven. Would you agree?
I never stated that I used them specifically. So I would not agree.
I'll move on, Ms. Weirs. I'd like to discuss what you claim about your sister and your environment. You claim that the sole difference between you and your sister's environment is your job, which included exposure to Drufo, yes?
Yes.
And you say that there were no other differences between these environments?
I said there was one difference, that the outdoors.
Ms. Weirs, you say in lines 112 through 114 that non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is environmental, not genetic, and the only difference in our environments was my environment included exposure to Drufo where I worked. Yes?
That is true.
And Ms. Weirs, this job entailed other chemicals that you may have been exposed to, correct?
Can you repeat the question?
This job entailed working with other chemicals other than Drufo, correct?
If I only worked with Lush fertilizer, then I was only exposed to Drufo.
Ms. Weirs, as I previously referred you, it says other fertilizers and chemicals Haven use had some sort of warning in packaging. And then you say, I often use the products indoors in the lobby of the large office buildings and shopping malls I worked in.
Objection, Your Honor. Is there a question in there?
Attorney Dorff, you have a question?
I apologize. Ms. Weirs, would you agree that in your witness statement that it says, I often use the products indoors in the lobby of large office buildings and shopping malls?
I'm confused what the question is.
Okay, I will move on. Ms. Weirs, the difference between you and your sister's environment included the exposure to these chemicals, which you state that you used indoors in the lobby of large office buildings and shopping malls, correct?
I'm sorry, may you repeat?
Ms. Weirs, you state that that you often use the products indoors in the lobby of large office buildings and shopping malls. These products included numerous other chemicals other than Drufo. So would you agree that the difference between you and your sister's environment also included these chemicals?
Yes, but I never handled them.
Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Ms. Dunn, any redirect?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
This witness may be excused. Ms. Sachs, are you next with your witness?
Next is Lisa.
Ms. Valeri.
Your Honor, I would like to call Carson Durst to the stand. Could you please state your first and last name and spell your last name for the records?
My name is Carson Durst, D-U-R-S-T.
Thank you, Ms. Durst. So, Ms. Durst, where are you currently working?
Currently, I work at Terrace Greenery.
And where were you working before Terrace?
I was working at Lush Fertilizer.
Could you please tell me what your relationship was with the Doncourt family?
Yes. Blake Doncourt, the CEO of Lush, has a son, and Charles and I, his son, grew up together, basically. I mean, we played traveling soccer together, and I spent so much time with their family that I became a part of it. I spent every Sunday and summer with him. I mean, they were just my family.
Could you please tell me about your education?
Yes. I attended Arizona State University along with Charles, where I got my bachelor's degree in chemical engineering.
And after you finished your education, where did your life and career take you?
I began working at Lush Fertilizer in 2003 as an intern for the research and development team.
And what was your biggest assignment at Lush?
When I started working at Lush, since I was an intern on the research and development team, that team was in the process of testing the safety of the chemical Drufo. Drufo is a pathogen bonding agent that is used to preserve fertilizer. My personal research found that there was a study done in the UK that showed that Drufo could be carcinogenic in rats.
Your Honor, I would like to ask the witness to reference what has been marked as Exhibit 3. I have provided opposing counsel with a copy of Exhibit 3. Ms. Durst, do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
This is the UK study regarding carcinogenic traces in rats.
Is this a fair and accurate copy?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, I would like to move to enter Exhibit 3 into evidence.
Attorney Dick Hodgson, anything, objections?
Yes, Your Honor. Objection to hearsay. The witness has not. Yes, the witness has not. Yeah. Objection to hearsay, Your Honor. the witness has not laid. So the witness has shoot. The witness has not. Right.
Mr. Hodgson, are you concerned that the witness didn't
No.
create
No,
this document?
Yes. Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Ms. Valena, do you have a response?
Well, I was going to lay some foundation for talking about possible carcinogenic traces in Drufo.
Being that this is an exhibit that the witness relied upon, I'm going to allow its admittance. Exhibit 3 is allowed.
Ms. Durst, could you please reference the section that has been marked as methods?
Yes.
And is it true that in the third paragraph, it states how long this study was?
Yes, it does.
Could you please tell me how long this study was?
This study was 147 weeks, which is roughly 3 years.
And how long was the Lush study in-house?
Roughly 1 month, which by logic, 3 years is going to be far more conclusive than 1 month. And since this study was not conducted in-house like Lush's, there is far less a chance that this study is biased.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions, Ms. Durst.
Mr. Hodgson?
All right, here we go. Hello, Carson Durst. I will be performing your cross-examination today.
Hello.
You work for, you work for a Terry Greenery, correct?
Yes, I do.
And where did you work before Terry Greenery?
I worked for Lush Fertilizer.
And at Terry Greenery, are you working on any breakthrough products?
Yes.
And do you believe that it could, and I quote, overtake Lush Fertilizer?
Sure, you could say that.
Objection, Your Honor.
Please state the nature of your objection, Ms. Valena.
The attorney is asking my witness to speculate.
A response, Mr. Hodgson?
Over. Lush Fertilizer and Terry Greenery are large. Terry Greenery is the main competitor to Lush Fertilizer, and they have been working on many other products that do attempt to overtake Lush Fertilizer and to overtake Lush Fertilizer.
I'm going to overrule the objection. You may continue.
All right. Thank you, Your Honor. Terry Greenery's relationship with Lush Fertilizer is strange, correct?
It's competitive. I'm not sure what you're asking me.
Mm-hmm. Yes. This relationship is competitive because Terry Greenery is Lush Fertilizer's biggest competitor, correct?
I mean, with every market, you're going to have a big competitor.
Mm-hmm. Lush's biggest advantage is the textures and longevity of their fertilizers, correct?
Yes.
Drufo is an ingredient in the product, Lush Fertilizer, that improves the longevity, correct?
Yes, it does.
So you are testifying against Lush Fertilizer, Terry Greenery's largest competitor, against their biggest advantage?
Yes, I am.
And you are personally working on a product that will overtake Lush Fertilizer?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor.
Please state the nature of your objection.
How is talking about Terra's Greenery and their current projects relevant to this case?
I understand. So your objection is relevancy?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. As I have stated, Terry Greenery and Lush Fertilizer are large competitors to each other, and do work on products to overtake one another.
I see the relevance. I'm going to overrule the objection, although you've already laid that foundation, and probably time to move on to another point.
Mm-hmm. All right. Wouldn't you agree? All right. Moving on. Wouldn't you agree that your statements are misleading considering the circumstances, Carson Durst?
I'm sorry, can you rephrase the question?
Okay. Do you believe that your statements are misleading considering considering the case today?
I'm not sure what you're asking me. Which statements?
The statements that I have questioned you on today.
No, I would not consider them misleading.
That'll be all, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any redirect, Ms. Valena?
How many questions am I allowed to ask?
If you could just ask one or two if you request related to the cross.
Your Honor, may I redirect, please?
You may.
Ms. Durst, you were an intern on the team, correct?
Yes, I was.
And you brought your concerns of possible carcinogenic traces to your boss, correct?
I did.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Okay, Ms. Sachs, I believe now this is your turn to call your next witness, correct?
Dr. Casey Rogers to the stand. All right. Hello, Dr. Rogers. Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Hi, my name is Dr. Casey Rogers. That's Rogers.
So, Dr. Rogers, can you tell me about your educational background?
Well, I have a PhD in agriculture and entomology from California, Berkeley, as well as a bachelor's in science in agriculture and chemistry from Colorado State University.
And what about your professional background?
Before I got my PhD, I was a research analyst for a multinational major chemical company, but currently I'm a professor at Berkeley in the horticulture and entomology departments.
And how long have you been at that job?
About 25 years.
Could you please refer to what has been marked as Exhibit 6? Opposing counsel already has a copy. Do you recognize this exhibit?
I do.
What is it?
It's my resume.
Is it an accurate representation of what you have just stated or regarding your education and your work experience?
It is.
At this time, I would like to move Exhibit 6 into evidence.
Ms. Stoll, any objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
It's moved into evidence.
Thank you. Dr. Rogers, could you now look at what has been marked as Exhibit 7? Do you recognize this exhibit?
I do.
What is it?
It's a list of all my published works.
And how do you know?
I remember working on each one of them.
Could you elaborate on those published works?
Well, my work focuses on pesticides and the harmful effects of them on the body, and 4 of these studies regard Rufo.
And have these works been peer-reviewed?
Yes, they have.
At this time, I would like to move Exhibit 7 into evidence.
Ms. Stoll, any objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
Exhibit 7 is moved into evidence.
Thank you. Dr. Rogers, do you believe that your testimony and the study you conducted will be helpful in assisting the judge or jury in understanding the facts of this case?
Absolutely.
Your Honor, at this time, I now tender this witness, an expert in the field of agriculture and entomology.
Ms. Stoll, any objection?
Yes, Your Honor, we have a voir dire.
Okay, go ahead. You'll have a couple of questions to voir dire.
Okay. Good afternoon, Dr. Casey Rogers. I'm Emmy Stoll, and I will be conducting your cross-examination and voir dire today. I'd like to ask that you please refrain your answers to yes or no. To start, I'd like to discuss your background in education. Are you ready to begin?
I am.
Okay. Dr. Rogers, you studied entomology, correct?
I did.
And this is the study of insects, yes?
Yes.
Dr. Rogers, you also studied agriculture, yes?
I do.
And this is the study of garden cultivation, yes?
It is.
You spent a significant amount of time working and studying these 2 topics, yes?
That's right.
But yet you have no degrees that pertain to toxicology, correct?
I don't.
Then
But
you would agree.
a lot of agriculture, especially when it comes to fertilizers, do have a direct correlation when it comes to oncology.
Then you would have to agree with me that you just have an interest in toxicology, correct?
Or objection, Your Honor. Argumentative.
I will say that it's getting close to argumentative, but I think that you've made your point with the voir dire. Ms. Stoll, do you want to explain your concern about this witness as an expert?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, the defense objected to Dr. Casey Rogers. It was proven that her expertise truly lies with garden cultivation and the study of insects, not with the analysis of fertilizers nor DRFO. I object to the witness.
Okay, your objection is lack of credentials for this testimony?
Yes, I object to the witness being qualified as an expert today.
I'm going to overrule the objection. I believe that the plaintiff has laid a good foundation. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving forward, Dr. Rogers, you said you worked with DRFO in the past. How did it catch your attention in this case?
Honestly, it caught my attention as soon as it hit the market, and it seemed completely rushed regarding safety. Now you see, DRFO was developed in 2003 by Lush's research and development team. It contains nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, and iron. But what really stunned me is that it's carcinogenic in rats.
So after you found out about this, what did you do?
I conducted my own study. I gathered together a group of people who had never been exposed to DRFO, people with occasional exposure, and people with prolonged exposure, and I monitored their health over the years.
And what did you conclude?
I concluded that people with prolonged exposure were 10 times more likely to be diagnosed with cancer as people without, and people with occasional exposure were 5 times more likely to be diagnosed as people without. Now you see, these are endocrine and exocrine-based varieties of cancer, which includes non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
So did you ever replicate this study?
I didn't. I found that with the period of time that it took and the fact that it was so risky, I found it unethical to continue this and replicate it.
And has the study been peer reviewed?
It hasn't. So peer review is when other scientists in the same field look at your work. And especially with a case like this and so many different opinions and methodologies, it just didn't work. And besides, peer review does take a long time, and I felt that it was urgent to get the message out that this product is potentially dangerous.
And has the study been published?
It hasn't. Like I said before, publishing does take maybe even over a year. And I felt I needed to prioritize getting this message out rather than publishing it. But I do hope to publish this soon.
All right. In your study, you studied non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. What did you find out about it?
I found that non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is caused by the environment. It attacks the body's immune system, more specifically the white blood cells, also known as lymphocytes, making people with this illness prone to other illnesses. It can start out small and grow slowly, but it can also be fast and aggressive. And despite the 72% 5-year survival rate and the fact that it can be treated, it can never be cured.
So did you find a correlation between exposure to DRFO and cancer?
A crystal clear one.
But Lush Fertilizers has a large variety of products. How many of them actually contain DRFO?
Every single one of them.
How do you know?
I measured it using a mass spectrometer.
And did you get a chance to review Dakota Weir's medical records?
I did.
And what did you find?
I found she worked with ample amounts of DRFO for the span of 4 years, so there is a high probability that her cancer was caused by DRFO.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Rogers. No further questions.
Ms. Stoll, you can do your cross.
Hello again, Dr. Casey Rogers. Let's begin cross-examination. I would like to discuss the risks of exposure, your studies you did concerning DRFO, and your suggestions that you made to companies. Dr. Rogers, you mentioned that you studied the potential harmful effects of prolonged exposure due to various chemicals, yes?
That's right.
Would you agree that it would be beneficial to wear protective gear to make sure people were not breathing in dangerous chemicals while working?
It would, yes.
Okay. If all of the safety precautions were followed properly, would the risk of exposure be decreased?
Possibly for her, yes.
Dr. Casey Rogers, you made recommendations to companies, yes?
I do.
Is it true that none of your recommendations to companies and regulatory agencies about precautions went through?
That is wrong. It has been used for advisory.
Let's continue. Dr. Rogers, you conducted studies on Drufo, correct?
I did.
And you monitored a group of people who used products containing Drufo and other fertilizers to find the effects that Drufo had on the body, yes?
That's right.
And the different types of people exposed to Drufo were farm laborers, gardeners, and people not involved in these activities, correct?
That's correct.
And these people were exposed to vastly different environments, yes?
That may be true, yes.
Would you agree that there were many unaccounted variables in this experiment?
No.
The people were also exposed to multiple different chemicals and other fertilizers, not just Drufo, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
So would you agree that people were exposed to different environments? Since they were exposed to different environments, there were many variables unaccounted for. Everything's different. Would you agree with that?
That's right, but the common factor is Drufo.
That is all. Thank you. And was there any specific evidence alone that linked Drufo alone to cancer in your studies?
Well, the fact that they all use Drufo, yes.
Okay, so then because of a lack in specific evidence that implicitly stated, you would agree with me that Drufo does not directly correlate to non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
There is a strong correlation.
But because there's no direct evidence, would you agree with me that Drufo does not directly correlate to non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
It has the big possibility of being.
Objection, Your Honor.
directly.
I agree. It's time to probably move on from this point. Sustained.
Dr. Casey Rogers, would you agree with me that the studies you have done are inconclusive?
They aren't inconclusive.
Sorry, say that again.
They are not inconclusive. I did find a conclusion.
Your Honor, I'd like to direct Dr. Casey Rogers to a witness statement. Is that all right? Permission to screen share? Okay.
Yes, if you're for purpose of impeachment, is that correct?
Your Honor, yes. Let me. Dr. Casey Rogers, could you please read lines 82 to 83 for me?
The results of the study were inconclusive, as protective covers are not typically provided to workers, and there was insufficient time to study the long-term efficacy of the protective equipment.
Dr. Casey Rogers, would you agree with me now that the studies were inconclusive because of the lack of evidence?
Sure.
Okay. To reiterate, Drufo does not directly correlate to non-Hodgkin lymphoma, correct?
Correct, but there is a high probability that it does.
Okay. No more further questions. Thank you, Your Honor.
Attorney Sachs, do you have any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Dr. Rogers, how long did your study take?
Multiple years.
And how many people did you have in the study?
A large group. I don't remember the exact number.
All right. And how does this mean that you had a lot of variety to choose from when you were doing your study?
I did.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. And the defense, are you ready to call first to the plaintiff's attorneys? Are there any more witnesses or do you rest?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Blake Doncourt to the stand.
Could you just hold on a second if I could just verify with either Ms. Valeria, Ms. Sachs, or Ms. Dunn, whether they...
The prosecution rests, Your Honor.
Thank
I was
you.
having trouble with my mic, sorry.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Hodgson, you can start now.
Good morning, Ms. Doncourt. My name is Connor Doroff, and I will be performing your direct exam today. Please state your name and spell it for the record.
My name is Blake Doncourt, Doncourt.
What is your current position at Lush Fertilizer?
I am the Chief Executive Officer at Lush Fertilizer.
What is your mission at Lush Fertilizer?
Lush Fertilizer has been instrumental in creating state and national legislation, educating environmental issues worldwide. We consider ourselves good stewards of environmental and safety practices.
Ms. Doncourt, how do you fulfill this mission?
Well, 10% of Lush's annual profits are given to charities dedicated to reducing the global nitrogen footprint.
Is there something you attribute to your company's success?
Yes, the time and care our company takes to put into developing the products is the reason that Lush is so successful. Our flagship product, Lush Fertilizer, is used by companies, the government, and families around the world because it is so effective.
Were there any precautions taken when developing this product?
Yes, we ran extensive testing and a toxicology report.
And what were the results of these tests, if any?
Well, the toxicology research and development team found nothing in the product to require a warning, including Drufo. The EPA also found nothing dangerous about our product.
Was there anything specifically mentioned about Drufo in the report?
There was no evidence found that Drufo was carcinogenic.
Ms. Doncourt, were any other studies conducted to determine if your product was safe?
At the time of creation, we considered all valid studies and found that none concluded Drufo to be unsafe. If there was any worry, we would have included a warning label to ensure our customers' safety.
Ms. Doncourt, why do you say that only valid studies were considered?
Well, Casey Rogers claims to have done some form of study, but it was never published in a scientific journal, nor was it published at the time of manufacturing.
Can you tell me about the study Dr. Rogers conducted?
It didn't follow any of the standard scientific practices or research methods. It is not reliable at all.
Now, I'd like to move on to discuss the accusatory email you mentioned in your witness statement. But before we begin, can you tell the jury of your relationship with Carson Durst?
Carson Durst was employed at Lush Fertilizer as a part of the research and development team.
And what happened to Mr. Durst?
Well, he was fired from Lush Fertilizer and they moved on to our main competitor at Terra Greenery.
To the best of your knowledge, Ms. Doncourt, what is Carson Durst's relationship with your rival company, Terra Greenery?
Well, to my knowledge, he received a lead research position and is working to develop a nearly identical product to Lush Fertilizer.
Does Carson have any claims against Lush?
No, and after his Carson's study claims that Drufo was carcinogenic. It was also interesting that Carson's claims about Drufo never came up until after he was fired.
So Mr. Durst brought up no claims while at Lush.
No, and after his removal, he claimed both Drufo was carcinogenic and that Lush fabricated an email saying that Lush knew of Drufo's risks.
Does this email hold any validity?
The plaintiff found no such thing in our email database after their own investigation. There was not a single email suggesting that Lush Fertilizer knew of Drufo's alleged risks. There would have been a paper trail if Lush Fertilizer had any financial motivation to release a dangerous product to the public.
Ms. Doncourt, why are you here today?
To dispel claims against my company, Lush Fertilizer, brought by Dakota Weirs about our product causing cancer.
And what is Lush's policy on baking fertilizer?
Well, we don't. There is no valid evidence that our fertilizer is carcinogenic. It just wouldn't alleviate any risk and it costs far too much.
Your Honor, permission to refer the witness to a copy of Exhibit 8.
Allowed?
Ms. Doncourt, could you please explain to the jury what this exhibit is?
This is an amortization table that shows profits if Lush chose not to bake our fertilizer.
Despite this table being nearly 8 years old, how are these figures still relevant?
Well, since we still follow the same policy of not baking our fertilizer, these numbers would still be accurate and relevant today.
Is this a valid and fair copy of the evidence?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, I believe that I have laid sufficient ground and move that Exhibit 8 be entered in as evidence.
Ms. Valenia, do you have any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 8 is moved into evidence.
Ms. Doncourt, could you please explain to the jury what this exhibit is illustrating in regards to baking fertilizer in your profit margins?
Well, we increase our profits 6% in the first year and an additional 2% every year thereafter by not baking our fertilizer.
And what does Lush do with this increased profit?
Well, we are a company and our investors demand a good return, so the money does go to them. They help keep our company alive so that we can continue to provide for our customers and continue to donate to charities for the sake of environmental stewardship and well-being.
Thank you, Your Honor, and Ms. Doncourt. I have no further questions.
Attorney Valenia, do you have any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Good morning, Ms. Doncourt. Thank you for being here today. So, is it true that you give 10% of your profits to charity every year?
Yes, it is true.
Is it true that because you don't bake your Drufo, or that you don't bake your Drufo, you save 2%?
We don't bake our fertilizer, and yes.
Yes, ma'am. So, is it true that you could give 8% to charity and 2% to bake it?
Objection, Your Honor. The question was argumentative.
I see that there's some validity to that question. You may proceed, Ms. Valenia. Objection overruled.
Is it true?
I'm sorry, can you restate the question?
Is it true that you could give 8% to charity and 2% to baking Drufo?
In theory, but why not give 10% to charities when they are for the environmental practices?
Ms. Doncourt, is it true that you have a child?
Yes.
And could you also please restate what the results of your in-house studies were?
That Drufo was not harmful or carcinogenic.
Ms. Doncourt, could you please refer to your witness statement?
Which lines?
Even on the very last line of the first page on line 23, it says, could you please read that at the very last part?
Since there was little to no risk?
Correct.
Since there was
little risk.
Okay. What?
Correct. There was little risk.
Yes, baking does alleviate a very, very small risk.
Not according to your witness statement. It says on lines 105 through it says on lines 105, correct, that you do not think that you needed to bake any of your products, correct?
Correct.
Is it true that baking your products would alleviate any carcinogenic traces?
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered.
Lalao, you can answer this.
Yes, it would alleviate any risk, which we account for by providing safety precautions on the bottle, the label.
So let me ask you this, please. You have a child, we established that. If your child, Charles, were in the position of this 14-year-old Dakota Weirs, who was hired in a landscaping company, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And
Objection, Your Honor.
The basis of your objection, Mr. Dorff?
The question is speculative.
It also seems speculative and argumentative, so I'm going to sustain the objection. Please move on from that question.
would you prefer that your child would be working with a fertilizer that has no risk in comparison to minimal risk?
I would want him to wear the safety precautions that were recommended.
Ma'am, I'm not asking you about safety precautions. I'm just asking about risk.
Restate your question.
Would you prefer that your child work with a fertilizer that has zero risk or minimal risk?
Zero risk.
So then why did you not bake your product?
Because it would alleviate a very, very small risk, which we account for by putting safety precautions on the label.
And you also talked about it being costly earlier, correct?
Yes, baking our fertilizer would be costly for our company.
So you chose to make a few more bucks to pay off some of your demanding capitalist investors that you mentioned earlier rather than ensure that there was zero risk for your customers like Dakota?
Objection, Your Honor.
The nature of your objection, Mr. Dorff?
The question was argumentative.
I'm going to agree and sustain that objection. Please ask a question without opinion added to that question, Ms. Valeria.
You talk about your demanding investors and how you need to pay them back, correct?
Yes, our company has investors like every other company.
So you chose to save 2% that you give 5 times more to charity, correct?
Correct.
It doesn't sound environmentalist when you decide to give 10%, correct?
Ms. Valena, that's argumentative. Can you state a different question without your argument or opinion?
In the absence of Drufa, would Lush be as profitable as it is today?
No.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Mr. Dorff, do you have any redirect?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Okay, this witness is excused, and you may call the defense may call their next witness.
Your Honor, the defense calls Dr. Devin Williams to the stand. Good morning, Dr. Devin Williams. Please state your name by spelling the last for the record.
Devin Williams, Williams.
Dr. Williams, where are you currently employed?
I work for Lush Fertilizer.
And what do you do?
I'm the head of the Toxicology and Research Department.
Could you expand on this, please?
Of course. I'm a research toxicologist by training and work to understand how biological systems respond to environmental interventions, whether that is alcohol and neurochemical pathways or inorganic compounds found in agricultural enhancing organophosphorus products.
How many years have you worked for Lush Fertilizer?
I started working for Lush 10 years ago and then was promoted to lead the toxicology department at the 3rd year, so I worked as a head for 7 of those years.
What types of toxicology did you study in the labs at Lush?
I worked through data sets and calculations to find the impact of biological interventions, whether it is alcohol or inorganic compounds and agricultural enhancing products, on the human body and the environment.
And what was your experience of leading and overseeing these labs?
Well, when I started out at Lush, many of the original Drufa workers had left the company. I filled in as a technician and was later promoted to lead the labs.
And can you tell me about your education in the past?
Of course. My education from undergrad through PhD was completed at Colorado State University in Fort Collins. I also did a specialized post-PhD program in pharmacotoxicology at the University of Washington. My work has taken me to various states, but I am primarily doing my work here in my home state at Colorado. I hold various accreditations that are listed in my CV, including certifications in Colorado, New Mexico, Wyoming, and Utah.
Dr. Williams, would it be your responsibility to identify if products are safe for consumers?
Yes, my role at Lush is to determine if products are harmful to humans and the environment.
And how do you do this?
Through my training and experience, I understand how to research and evaluate test results to determine the fate and effects of potentially toxic chemical agents by using biomolecular biochemical markers. This means I know how to tell if a substance is going to harm the average human and how to neutralize that harm if it happens. And while my work is principally data-driven, I am often asked to postulate as to broader outcomes that can be derived from my data sets. This is the nature of science, and especially in an industry that supports agricultural food systems.
Your Honor, I would like to refer to Exhibit 9. Let the record reflect that we are now looking at Exhibit 9. Dr. Williams, do you recognize this?
Yes, Exhibit 9 is a copy of my curriculum vitae with all of my gradations and degrees.
Does this accurately reflect your education and experience, Dr. Williams?
Yes, it does.
Your Honor, I would like to offer Exhibit 9 into evidence.
Ms. Sachs, any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 9 is moved into evidence.
So I would like to offer Dr. Williams as an expert witness qualified to give opinions about toxicology, Your Honor.
Ms. Sachs, any objection or voir dire?
No, Your Honor.
Dr. Williams will be an expert on toxicology. You may go forward.
Okay, let's continue. Dr. Williams, have you reviewed Dr. Casey Rogers' studies?
Yes, I have looked at Dr. Casey's Rogers study and find it to be inconclusive at best.
Dr. Williams, did you hear Dr. Rogers testify today in court today?
Yes, I have.
Okay, what are your impressions of Dr. Casey Rogers' studies?
I find that they are inconclusive. He compares people who use Drufo casually to people who use it frequently, almost daily. This is comparing apples to oranges. For a conclusive study, you should compare people who use Drufo frequently and infrequently to people who use other fertilizers to get a full test result to determine if Drufo is the sole cause of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Dr. Williams, is it true that as a product tester that there were some products not released to the public because they were found to be harmful?
Yes, this is the role of my department in this company. I determine whether products are safe or not.
Okay, and in the case of Drufo, what was done to be found that it was safe?
Of course, the way we answer that is through statistics. For instance, we can look at the incident rate of non-Hodgkin lymphoma in groups of people who use Drufo and compare that to the incident rate of people who use different types of fertilizers.
Dr. Williams, now are you aware of the ban of Drufo in the EU?
Yes, I am aware of that ban.
And why is this illegal?
The EU did ban Drufo, but they did not do so over concerns of it being carcinogenic. Rather, they put it in place over concerns of eutrophication from the fertilizer, which is excess nitrogens from fertilizer running off into groundwater and other water sources, and often causing large and harmful algae blooms.
Dr. Williams, in your expert opinion, does Drufo cause cancer?
No, Drufo is a bonding agent, which means it binds nitrogen to a plant that it is being applied to, thus removing a large chance of being exposed to nitrogen. Sorry.
That is all. Thank you for your time, Dr. Williams. No more questions, Your Honor.
Attorney Sachs, do you have a cross?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may go.
Thank you. Hello, Dr. Williams. You said that you lead the toxicology research and development labs, right?
Yes, I am working at Lush as head of the toxicology and research department.
All right, and you also teach the University of New Mexico College of Pharmacy, correct?
Yes, I do.
And you teach 3 courses there?
Yes.
Does this keep you very busy?
Yes, it does keep me quite busy.
Objection, Your Honor, relevancy.
Attorney Sachs, response?
I'm getting to that next in the next question.
You may continue.
Thank you. So just to repeat the last question, do these courses keep you very busy?
Yes, they do keep me quite busy.
Did it keep you too busy to publish any of your works on Drufo?
Most of my studies were a house study in Lush, so there was no need for them to be published, only given to higher up in Lush Fertilizer.
All right, well, Drufo is only one chemical though, but you haven't published any works on any fertilizers, have you?
I have not done any studies for the same reason that I have not published any studies. They don't need to be published, only reviewed by management in Lush Fertilizer.
So you said you were involved in Lush's in-house studies, correct?
Yes, I am the head of toxicology and research, so it is my role to be a large part of this in-house studies to make sure they are as fair and accurate as possible.
So why were these studies so brief then?
So they were brief studies because we only need a certain data set, and then using that data set and various calculations, we can determine the long-term effects of any chemical.
You are aware that the National Center for Biotechnology Information suggests that a study should be between 6 and 8 years to confirm that there is a negative result, yes?
Could you repeat that again? I had trouble hearing you.
Yes. Are you aware that the National Center for Biotechnology Information suggests that a study should be between 6 and 8 years to confirm that there is a negative result?
Yes, I was aware of that, but there is no need for any long-term and possibly unethical study because of the calculations we have that can determine the same effect.
Now, lush fertilizer products are banned by countries by the EU, right?
Yes, again, they did ban it, but not over concerns of Drufa being carcinogenic.
But you are finishing a study that you think will be used to change that, right?
Yes, I am finishing a study.
So this means that if the case comes out in the defense's favor today, you would benefit financially from it, wouldn't you?
I am not in position to answer that question. I do not work for Lush's.
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
Ms. Sachs, your response?
If the study is passed and that products are available in the EU, and this means that more products will be sold and the company will profit more, ergo, Dr. Williams will also.
There is obviously some speculation in that, but I do think that this witness can testify to that. Overruled, you may continue.
I restate my last question. So this means that if the case comes out in the defense's favor, you would benefit financially from it, wouldn't you?
Yes, I can say that Lush would benefit from more sales in the EU.
Okay, thank you. That is all.
Ms. Stoll, do you have any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor.
This witness can be excused, and if we can go to defense's third witness.
Your Honor, the defense calls Skylar Weirs to the stand. Hello, Skylar Weirs. My name is Jacob Hodgson. Please state your name and your last name for the record.
Skylar Weirs, W-E-I-R-S.
What is your current occupation?
I'm currently an investigative journalist for the science education magazine Rationalist.
And what is your current occupation brought you to investigate?
I typically investigate topics like the relationship between individual health and corporate policy.
Now, Mrs. Weirs, individual health and corporate policy do not sound directly related to the case here today. So why are you brought here to testify today?
I'm here today because I published an article about Drufo, the chemical compound in Lush fertilizer, and its possible connection to cancer.
And how long did you spend researching this topic?
I spent almost an entire year researching this topic and studying the impacts of Drufo, and more specifically, its carcinogenic elements or lack thereof.
And what did this research entail?
This research entailed that I personally go through publications on different agri-tech companies, which included Lush fertilizer, and then going through the different research that created that publication.
What significant valid sources did you get your information from?
I got some of my information from the United States Department of Agriculture and the National Association of State Department of Agriculture.
Your Honor, by Rule of Evidence 702, I believe I have laid sufficient foundation that asserts Skylar Weirs has specialized knowledge over the average juror through the extensive time and research completed on the on-balance impacts of architect. We offer Skylar Weirs as an expert witness in architect analysis.
Ms. Dunn, any objection or voir dire on allowing this witness to be an expert on agricultural technology?
Yes, Your Honor. Permission to voir dire the witness?
You may. It's just with a few questions.
Good morning, Ms. Weirs. So did you ever go to college?
I did not formally go to college.
So have you ever taken a collegiate level biology class?
I have not.
Or an oncology class, perhaps?
I have not.
And you claim that you studied agri-tech for almost a year, correct?
I did. I thoroughly studied it for almost an entire year.
Now, you state that you thoroughly studied it, but in this time, you were also working a part-time job, correct?
Correct.
So in this year of research, you were also working, so it wasn't even really a full year of research, correct?
Well, yes, but my job didn't necessarily interfere with my research.
I understand, but you were not solely researching for a year.
Not
Correct.
solely, wasn't the only thing I was doing.
Now, in this research, you read publications from other doctors, correct?
Yes,
And you visited their labs and spoke to them. But you never conducted your own experiments, correct?
correct.
And this would be because you do not have a collegiate level degree?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Dunn, do you have any argument regarding this witness being identified as an expert in agricultural technology?
Yes, she can qualify in either knowledge, skill, experience, training, or education. And I believe that the witness qualifies in none of the 5 as an expert.
I believe that you've raised some very good questions regarding weight of her credibility into this evidence, but given the pretrial ruling, I am going to allow this witness to be identified as an expert solely in agricultural technology.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Hodson, you may continue.
All right. Thank you, Your Honor. If you don't mind, I'd like to talk about architect now. What is architect?
Agritech is the use of technology in agriculture, horticulture, and aquaculture.
What types of products did you research while investigating architect?
I researched the defendant, Lush Fertilizer, and a lot of other commercial agriculture companies.
What did your research about Lush Fertilizer reveal?
My research revealed that modern fertilizers like Lush are a lot safer than older products that are still in use today.
What did your research about the chemical compound Drufo reveal?
My research revealed that Drufo doesn't have the added pesticides found in other grass seed products like glyphosate and arsenic, which means that other fertilizers besides Lush are more likely to cause cancer than Lush Fertilizer is.
What does this mean, Ms. Weirs?
This means that Lush Fertilizer's development of Drufo actually protects consumers by the elimination of exposure to other chemicals known to be carcinogenic.
And through your years of extensive research on Lush Fertilizer and Drufo, what do you claim?
I can claim that in comparison to other fertilizers, Lush Fertilizer is less likely to be carcinogenic.
And why do you say this today?
Well, I say this because my research revealed that any study claiming the connection between Lush being carcinogenic was always inconclusive at best, whereas many other fertilizers that my sister would have been using make a positive connection between the two.
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation. Ms. Weirs was not there working with Dakota Weirs while she was at Havens Landscaping and therefore cannot testify on the chemicals that she was using.
Your response, Mr. DeHodgens?
Skylar Weirs is an expert witness in architect. So in working as an expert in architect, then Skylar Weirs knows there's extensive knowledge about fertilizers other than fertilizers, including Drufo.
I'm going to overrule the objection and allow you to ask that question. You may proceed.
All right. In your opinion, who is at fault for your siblings' non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
Well, in my opinion, I would say that Haven Landscaping is at fault for Dakota's diagnosis because they allowed a teenage employee to handle dangerous chemicals without using any protective gear.
I would like to talk about your personal connection to this case. Ms. Weirs, how are you connected to the plaintiff?
The plaintiff, Dakota Weirs, is my twin sister.
What is your relationship like with the plaintiff?
Well, my relationship with Dakota has been strained for several years, but even more so with this case.
Why is testifying here? What is testifying here today? What is testifying here today against your sibling like with the plaintiff? No. What is testifying here today against your sibling like?
Well, I love my sibling Dakota. Being here today against my entire family is really hard. However, I believe the truth at any cost must be heard. So while my family is important to me, I won't let the truth be left behind.
Why else could this relationship be strained?
Well, a while ago, I started to spiral because I don't have the same opportunities to get involved in sports and extracurriculars due to my allergy to grass. And so I got into gambling, mostly sports betting, which of course came with many debts. For a little while, I was given financial
Objection, Your
support.
Honor. Relevancy, the witness is here to testify today on her expertise in agri-tech. Her personal life has nothing to do with the case today.
Defense, your response?
Skylar Weirs is testifying why. Skylar Weirs is testifying why her connection with Dakota Weirs, the main point of this case is so important to her.
I believe that you're correct that she was as an expert witness in agritech, but this may go to credibility or other issues, so I'm going to allow the question.
Why else could this relationship be strained?
Well, as I was saying before, for a while, my parents were giving me financial support in my debts. However, after my mother passed away, and my father wasn't very happy that I decided not to go to college, and so he cut me off. And when Dakota was diagnosed, he turned towards helping Dakota instead of me.
What would your response be to someone who might call you resentful or spiteful in this case?
Objection,
I love my family.
I'm going to sustain that objection. Can you ask your next question, please?
That'll be all, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Dunn, do you have a cross?
I do, Your Honor. Thank you. Now, Ms. Weirs, you stated you're an investigative journalist, yes?
Yes, I am.
And that you write for Rationalist magazine.
I do.
And you've written several articles, correct?
Yes.
And you describe them as prominent, do you not?
I do.
Have they won any awards?
No.
So is it your own opinion then that makes them prominent?
Yes, but I would say that this is more because many people read them.
And you write on a variety of topics though, correct?
Yes.
Does one of these include articles about UFOs?
Yes.
Flat Earth theory?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevancy.
Ms. Dunn, your statement as far as applied this is relevant?
I'm establishing a basis that the witness hasn't specified on a single type of writing in her time as a journalist.
I believe that this does go to credibility. I'll allow a few more questions in this vein. Objection overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Weirs, you claim from your own research that Lush fertilizer is safe, yes?
A lot safer than other fertilizers in use.
And you began this research for Rationalist magazine, correct?
Correct.
Now, is Rationalist magazine an academic journal?
No, it is a science education magazine.
So would that mean that your writing technically isn't research, but rather entertainment?
Well, I have to do research in order to write my articles, so I would consider it research.
I understand, but Rationalist magazine is not a scientific journal, correct?
Correct.
So your research is not technically credible, correct?
I guess not.
Now, in this research on agritech and DRUFO specifically, you reviewed publications written by other agritech companies, did you not?
Yes.
And you reviewed the research referenced in those publications, yes?
Yes.
And you also mentioned in your direct that you reviewed information from the United States Department of Agriculture and the National Association of the State Department of Agriculture, yes?
Yes.
And after reviewing all of the information from these different associations, you made the claim that Lush fertilizer is safe, correct?
Not wholly safe, but a lot, because you can't conclude that any one fertilizer is completely safe. However, it is a lot safer than other fertilizers.
I understand, but generally speaking, safe, correct?
Sure.
You made that claim. However, this contradicts with the actual research that you found, doesn't it?
Well, it may. However, since I found that Drufo is such an effective pesticide, it doesn't need to contain other possible carcinogens that are found in other pesticides, which is why
I understand. I just want to back up to specifically what you
Ms. Dunn?
found.
Ms. Dunn, I'm going to let you ask that you allow the witness to finish her
Sorry, Your
answers.
Honor, of course.
No, I finished my answer. You can continue.
I would like you to refer to your witness statement on line 83, if you don't mind. You state that the research on Drufo causing cancer and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is inconclusive at best, correct?
Yes, I said that.
And doesn't this contradict with your previous statement that Drufo is a safe product?
I didn't say it was fully safe. I said that it was safer than other products.
Safer. But these, wouldn't you agree that safer and just inconclusive are inherently different, correct?
I mean, it could be, but I'm not claiming that Drufo is completely safe.
But essentially, your own research didn't even line up with the data provided by the United States Department of Agriculture.
Not
Objection, Your Honor,
necessarily.
argumentative.
I agree. This is getting into some argument. Move on.
I can move on, Your Honor. Now, like you said, you've only researched agritech for about a year, and yet you claim that you're more knowledgeable in this field than most others, correct?
I do.
Have you discussed your research with other agritech scientists?
No, I have not.
And are you aware that these typical scientists study for 8 to 10 years?
Yes.
And yet you made the statement that you are more knowledgeable than them.
Yes.
Now I want to move on for a moment. You also talk about the link, like I said, you talk about the link between Drufo and non-Hodgkin's to be inconclusive or safer, correct?
Yes.
And you state that it was inconclusive because Dakota Weirs has been exposed to other pesticides and carcinogens, correct?
Yes, she has.
However, you mentioned in your direct examination that Drufo protects consumers because it eliminates exposure to other carcinogens, yes?
Yes.
So wouldn't that mean if Dakota was exposed to Drufo and that there's less of these other carcinogens with the presence of Drufo, that the statistical likelihood that the cancer was caused by Drufo goes up?
I'm sorry, can you explain that question?
Yes, sorry, let me rephrase that for you. You stated that Drufo eliminates other carcinogens, correct?
Yes.
So wouldn't that mean that with Drufo present, there's less other carcinogens, that the statistical likelihood of Drufo being the source of cancer goes up?
Well, if there were less pesticides that were carcinogenic, wouldn't that statistic go down?
If Drufo is eliminating other carcinogens and other chemicals, and Drufo and these other chemicals have all come together to cause cancer, wouldn't that mean that Drufo statistically being the source goes up?
I would not say that, no.
Okay, well, no further questions, Your Honor. That'll be all.
Mr. Dick Hutchins, do you have any redirect?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
You have a few questions.
Yes, I do. Why, Skylar Weirs, why is Drufo better than other fertilizers?
I believe that Drufo is better than other fertilizers because not only is it such an effective bonding agent, but it also has, it also is less likely to be carcinogenic.
And why does this matter?
Well, it matters because it means that Drufo is potentially a lot safer than other fertilizers in use.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Does the defense have any other witnesses at this time?
Defense rests, Your Honor.
All right, then we may go to closing statements for the plaintiff. I believe that's Ms. Dunn. Are you doing the closing statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may continue, or you may start your closing statement.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, thank you for your time and attention throughout the trial today. My client, Dakota Weirs, was standing on the doorstep of an incredibly bright future. From a young age, her passion for the piano was her clear path forward in life. What began as a hobby that bloomed from her and her grandfather turned into musical competitions and a full-ride scholarship to Juilliard. Dakota Weirs was supposed to be flourishing in New York, But college dorms and corner cafes turned into hospital rooms and doctor's offices when this child was diagnosed with cancer. Now, they say that life is priceless, that there's no value or number to be assigned to a life that's well lived. But today, we uncovered the horrendous truth that Lush Fertilizer stuck a price tag on survival when their gross negligence robbed Dakota Weirs of her dreams and her entire future. Now today, for my client to prove that Lush Fertilizer was negligent and that they chose profit over the lives of others, there are certain elements we must show by preponderance of the evidence. The first is that Lush Fertilizer produced a product containing a chemical compound known as Drufo. This fact is not in contest by the defense today. The second thing we must prove is that Lush Fertilizer failed to exercise reasonable care to prevent a product from creating an unreasonable risk of harm. And additionally, that Dakota was the user reasonably expected to use their product. As you heard from Dakota's testimony today, she worked for Haven Landscaping for several years. And when asked if landscaping companies are the expected user of their products, Blake Doncourt answered with yes. Now, fertilizers are primarily made up of chemicals. And yes, chemicals are dangerous. Chemicals can cause skin irritation and watery eyes. But skin irritation and watery eyes are leagues away from the life-ending damage caused by an ingredient completely unique to Lush, and that is Drufo. Therefore, it does not warrant the same standard label that's slapped on every fertilizer bottle. As you heard from Exhibit 1 today, the warning label states, as with any spray fertilizer. But Lush is not any spray fertilizer, not when they've stuffed it full of a carcinogenic product that makes their company stand out. Blake Doncourt, CEO of Lush, when asked if Lush ever had any concerns about the safety of Drufo, replied no without any hesitation. And yet they conducted not one, but 2 in-house studies. And it's also important to understand that the duration of their in-house studies was measured in weeks. Typical research of this kind, like the UK study, lasts years. Dr. Casey Rogers, another witness who testified on Dakota's behalf, and who is not a paid employee from the company that benefits from Drufo, conducted her own study and found, as you heard, that you are 10 times more likely to contract non-Hodgkin's lymphoma after exposure to Drufo. The causal link between Drufo and cancer is more probable than not. If it wasn't, it would not be showing in the research. And perhaps Lush would not have buried their studies or fired a man who raised concerns about the safety of Drufo. Finally, we proved today that Dakota has damages caused specifically by Lush's negligence. As you heard from her testimony, she lost her passion and her future. Her scholarship disappeared when she could barely sit down to play the piano. There's no doubt that Dakota suffered emotional pain and suffering, as well as the obvious physical pain and suffering she mentioned before. And additionally, because Dakota suffered such damages, and that these damages are a direct consequence of the negligence of Lush Fertilizer, you're directed to determine if Dakota expressed any negligence as well. Let me answer this for you now. She did not. Dakota acted in a way that any reasonable user would with the minimal warning that she received. Lush Fertilizer, ladies and gentlemen, is simply afraid. They were afraid to let go of their 2% of profits it would have taken to bake the Drufo and eliminate all carcinogens. They were afraid of their secret being leaked, and most of all now, they're afraid of their mistake of stealing this young girl's life is now going to cost them their biggest moneymaker. For these reasons, we ask you to return a verdict in favor of the plaintiff today and ask for damages in the amount of $10 million. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dunn. For the defense, you may begin your closing.
Your Honor, opposing counsel, and members of the jury, today we gathered to hear the story of Dakota Weirs, a story that was undeniably tragic, but a story that was undeniably preventable. We, as the defense, affirm that Dakota Weirs is a victim of both her own negligence and of the greed of competitors attempting to profit from her condition. Through her very own admission, Dakota told us of her disregard for safety protocols while working as a landscaper, a job in which she would have been exposed to a myriad of chemicals, all potentially more dangerous than lush fertilizer. Even Dakota's own sister, Skylar Weirs, admits that this case is a case of negligence on the part of Haven Landscaping and a case of negligence on the part of her sister as well. As the defense called Dr. Devin Williams, he explained the extensive testing that Lush's products underwent to determine whether Drufo posed a risk to its users. All confirmed Drufo to be safe. You also heard from Lush's CEO, Blake Doncourt, that all scientifically valid tests available at the time of manufacturing demonstrated that Drufo was non-carcinogenic and thus safe for human use. Carson Durst's false claims that Lush was aware of its product's danger rose out of greed and Carson's own personal gain at Lush's main competitor, Terra Greenery. Dakota is a victim of his avarice. As for any poorly designed studies that say that Drufo was carcinogenic and dangerous for human use, you all heard Dr. Devin Williams' deconstruction of Dr. Casey Rogers' study, which claimed Drufo to be harmful. As Dr. Williams explains, Rogers' negligent construction of his study created numerous confounding variables that could have easily produced the result that he claims was caused by Drufo. Not to mention that this study has neither been peer-reviewed nor repeated. As we have laid the case before you, I hope it is clear that Dakota Weirs' story, in all of its tragedy, was preventable. Preventable not on the part of Lush Fertilizer or any of its counterparts, but rather a story of preventable negligence woven throughout both the actions of Dakota Weirs and the entirety of the prosecution's case. Do not let the deceptive lies of the prosecution outweigh the scientific fact upheld by the defense. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you to both teams. This case is now closed and the case is now finished. So I'm going to let the scoring judges finish their tabulations, and we're just a little bit before 11. So I'll also have 5 minutes here for comments and questions. When scoring judges, when you're done submitting, if you could just turn on your cameras, and if I could also have the teams and the witnesses and the attorneys turn on theirs also. While the scoring is going on, I just want to say thank you. You guys did a very good job. You're very professional and respectful to both sides. My one caution would be always to be careful of going too far on the emotion side, both as an attorney and a witness. It's great for TV, but you want to probably dial it down about 2 or 3 or 4 from what TV would show. So you want to be kind of careful about your adjectives and adverbs and the amount of emotion. You want to have some emotion, but you just don't want to go too far because you'll turn off a potential jury. And also to consider using your jury instructions for both your opening and closing, and as you're suggesting your questions, because that's what the jury is going to have to go back and look at to analyze this case. So I always recommend teams include some parts of the jury instructions in their case. But you guys did very, very good, especially for a Saturday morning. And so thank you for your professionalism in handling this. Ms. Laurie, do you want to start first?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. My name is Banav Shalari. I am a family law attorney, and I'm currently the vice president for the Adams Broomfield Bar Association. I have previously coached high school mock trial for about 5 years. So I have a lot of experience in that realm. I want to first say that all of you were fantastic. I could tell that both teams were very prepared, had spent a lot of time, and to witnesses, you all did a fantastic job. You carried your team, and attorneys, you all really took on the role and ran with it. I have 3 comments, maybe suggestions for the next round. My first comment for attorneys is that in terms of objections, when you are objected to and the court overrules that objection, repeat your question so that the witness can hear it again, the jury can hear it again, because we kind of get distracted by the objection. So repeat your question, and you can say, I'll repeat my question. My next suggestion for you all is on impeachments. When you are impeaching another witness on cross-examination, don't have that witness be the one to read your witness statement. You be the one to read the witness statement as the attorney. You be in control of that questioning. And then finally, for witnesses, my comments to you all is to just speak a little slower for us. We're getting all of this information, and all of you did a fantastic job, but just slow it down a little. And bravo, I hope one of these teams gets to go to state.
Mr. Twining.
Sorry to interrupt, Tony. Before we keep going, they're waiting on Miss Purdy's score sheet. So if she could get that submitted, that would be great.
Ms. Purdy, if you could just hit the submit button on the very, very bottom. I missed that the first time.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tim Twining. I'm a chief deputy at the Adams County DA's office. I've been a judge and a juror in past mock trials, and I want to tell you that you guys were fantastic. I stand and I applaud each and every one of you. It was manifest how much hard work you put into this. And I'm blown away by your command of the law and your presence and demeanor. You all are fantastic. I'm glad I'm not deciding who goes forward. It was quite the horse race. The one suggestion I would have for all of you that did cross-examination, first of all, cross is hard. It's much more difficult than direct. So therefore, you need to be better prepared for your cross-examination. Keep your questions super short and tight. You start adding too many facts and asking bigger questions, it gets muddled. The witness has a way out. Break down those big thoughts into little tiny bite-sized morsels. Cross is hard, practice on cross for everybody. But overall, I'm so happy that I was part of this just to watch you all. You're outstanding and good luck.
Hi, sorry, I don't want to interrupt the feedback. I think we're missing one of the score sheets. So if I could just confirm that all the scoring panelists have sent in their score sheets. I see you, Tim.
I apologize. I'm holding things up, and I am finishing up right now, and I will submit it within the next minute.
Okay, thank you, Marla. Thank you, Marla.
I'm going to ask Stephanie Farrow to also provide some feedback as she watched. She's done this a lot of times too. So while we're waiting for Ms. Purdy, I'll have Ms. Farrow give some thoughts.
Okay, great. Well, that was very unexpected, but I was paying attention. I'll echo what everyone else said. Your guys' presentation is something you should be very proud of. Something I've mentioned to the other teams, and I think is true here as well. This platform is not easy. It's difficult even for people who are trained professionals. I thought all of you guys handled it with a lot of grace and professionalism, and that's really something to be applauded. I know we're all looking forward to getting this stuff back in person, but since we're virtual, you guys did great adjusting to that and using the technology the way that you needed to. The only other thing I would say is everybody could slow down a little bit. You guys know this case inside, outside, backwards, forwards, probably upside down. But for those of us who are sitting in here hearing it for the first time, we miss a lot of the details if you go too quickly. And I know you guys have a time crunch, and that's where working with your coaches to pick just the facts that really matter and focusing on that could be helpful to limit your presentation and make sure we really get the pieces that are important. But you guys are phenomenal. I was very impressed.
Ms. Purdy, do you have anything you'd like to add? Or?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought everyone did absolutely fantastic. I am a paralegal in family law, so I don't, have a ton of experience in the courtroom. But it looked to me like everybody was very prepared, and they touched on all, the crucial points, and I thought everybody did just fantastic. I was very impressed.
Thank you. Well, and thank you all. And I just want to reiterate that most people are very afraid of speaking in public. That's like the number one fear, even over dying. And you guys all stepped up and showed bravery to do that today. Also, why you know that there's somebody on the other side objecting to what you say. So that even makes it harder. So I just want to commend your bravery in undertaking mock trial as an activity, and you did great. So have a good day and good luck, and hope you can move on. Thank you.